The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the kitchen counter. My daughter Lucy's soft cries from the nursery barely registered as Layla's words echoed in my head. Bridget changed the name. The sign went up this morning, O'Brien's Family Bakery. I'm Malia, and until 3 months ago, I was living my dream as the proud owner of Sweet Dreams Bakery. Now, as I stood in my kitchen with trembling hands, that dream was crumbling like day-old cookies. Malia, are you there? Layla's voice crackled through the speaker. I snatched up the phone. Tell me everything. She's completely taken over. New menus, new suppliers, even new uniforms. The staff is confused, but she's waving around some paperwork claiming temporary authority while you're on maternity leave. Lucy's cries grew louder. I hurried to her room, cradling the phone between my ear and shoulder as I lifted her from the crib. How did this happen? Kent's mom was supposed to just help manage things temporarily. That's not all, Layla lowered her voice. She's telling customers you've decided to step back permanently to focus on motherhood. My blood boiled. She what? I tried calling you sooner, but she's been monitoring everything. Had to wait until her lunch meeting to sneak away. The doorbell rang, making Lucy startle in my arms. Through the window, I spotted Kent's car in the driveway. He wasn't supposed to be home for hours. Layla, I have to go. Don't let her know you called. I opened the door to find Kent looking worried. Hey, honey, Mom called. Said you might need help with Lucy today? Did she now? I forced a smile, bouncing Lucy gently. Funny she didn't mention anything to me about calling you. Kent stepped inside, kissing my cheek. Well, I had some vacation days saved up anyway. Thought I'd surprise you. Your mother's full of surprises lately. He frowned. What do you mean? I handed him Lucy. Have you driven past the bakery recently? No, why? Because your mother renamed it. My bakery, the one I built from scratch, the one that paid for our wedding. It's now O'Brien's Family Bakery. Kent's face paled. That's impossible. She's just helping out while you recover. Call her. Ask her yourself. He pulled out his phone, but I stopped him. Actually, wait. I need to see this for myself first. Malia, you're supposed to be resting. I've rested enough. I grabbed my keys. Watch Lucy. I'll be back in an hour. At least let me come with you. No. I softened my tone at his hurt expression. I need to do this alone. Your mother's already convinced half the town I'm too weak to handle both business and motherhood. I won't prove her right by hiding behind you. The drive to downtown felt surreal. 3 months ago, I'd walked out of those doors, 8 months pregnant, but confident I'd left my business in capable hands. Bridget had seemed so supportive then, insisting I take proper maternity leave, promising to keep everything running smoothly. I parked across the street, my heart sinking at the sight of the new sign. The elegant blue and gold lettering I'd chosen was gone, replaced by gaudy Celtic-inspired fonts. Through the window, I could see Bridget behind the counter, wearing a crisp blazer instead of the traditional baker's apron we'd always used. My phone buzzed with a text from Kent. Mom's not answering. Want me to try again? I typed back. No need. I'm looking at her right now. As if sensing my presence, Bridget glanced up. Our eyes met through the window and her smile froze. She quickly turned away, disappearing into the back office. My office. Another text from Kent. Coming to you now. Mom just called, says there's been a misunderstanding. I smiled grimly, starting my car. A misunderstanding? No, this was a calculated takeover. But what Bridget didn't know was that I'd seen something like this coming long before Lucy was even conceived. She wasn't the first person to assume a young mother couldn't handle business ownership. That's why I'd visited Johnny Bell, my lawyer, 6 months ago. The papers he'd drawn up were safely tucked away in my home office, waiting for exactly this kind of situation. I drove home, my initial shock giving way to cold determination. Bridget thought she was teaching me a lesson about choosing between motherhood and career. Instead, she was about to learn one herself, about underestimating the wrong person. Let her enjoy playing business owner for now. I had a few surprises of my own in store for my dear mother-in-law. The next morning, I pulled my hair into a messy bun, threw on an oversized hoodie I hadn't worn since college, and grabbed my old reading glasses. With Lucy safely at her first daycare trial day, I was ready to do some undercover reconnaissance. Walking into my own bakery as a stranger felt surreal. The warm, homey atmosphere I'd cultivated had been replaced by stark modernism. Gone were the vintage mixing bowls I'd collected from flea markets. Instead, cold stainless steel and pretentious art prints dominated the walls. "Welcome to O'Brien's," chirped a new employee I didn't recognize. Her name tag read Jessica. "Today's special is our artisanal lavender-infused croissant." I nearly choked. Lavender? In my traditional French croissants? "Actually," I mumbled, disguising my voice slightly, "I heard this place used to make amazing cinnamon rolls?" Jessica's smile faltered. "Oh, those were discontinued. Mrs. O'Brien says they weren't sophisticated enough for our new image. My signature cinnamon rolls, the recipe that put us on the map. Discontinued." I settled into a corner table with a mediocre coffee, watching the morning rush. Regular customers looked confused by the new menu. Several left without ordering. "It's not the same anymore, is it?" a familiar voice whispered. I turned to find Layla pretending to wipe nearby tables. She kept her back to the security cameras Bridget had installed. "The books are worse," she murmured. "I glimpsed them yesterday. She's hemorrhaging money on renovations and fancy ingredients, but customer numbers are dropping daily." "Where's the original financial records?" "Locked in your office." "But—" Layla glanced around before sliding a folded paper into my hoodie pocket. "I made copies of last week's numbers. It's bad, Malia." The back door chimed, and Bridget swept in wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than a month's worth of flour orders. "Jessica, those display cases need to be spotless. We have the food critic from Elite Tastes coming this afternoon." My heart stopped. Elite Tastes was notorious for brutal reviews of traditional bakeries trying to be upscale. One bad write-up could destroy years of goodwill. Bridget spotted Layla. "Don't you have deliveries to prepare?" "Just finished cleaning the tables, Mrs. O'Brien." "Well, the kitchen needs attention. And remember, it's Madame O'Brien now. We're elevating our standards." I buried my face in my coffee cup as Bridget passed my table. Once she disappeared into the office, I slipped into the bathroom and examined Layla's paper. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Bridget had drained the emergency fund I'd built up over 5 years, all for her vanity renovations. My phone buzzed. Kent. "Mom's asking about dinner tonight. Says she has exciting news about the bakery." I texted back, "Perfect. I'll be there." Another buzz. "You're plotting something, aren't you?" "Me? Never. Just being a supportive daughter-in-law." I was about to leave when I overheard Jessica at the counter. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Martinez, but we don't do custom birthday cakes anymore." "But Sweet Dreams always made my son's birthday cake," an elderly woman protested. "Every year for 10 years. It's tradition. Madame O'Brien says custom orders aren't cost-effective." Mrs. Martinez, who had been my first ever customer, left in tears. I ducked into the bathroom again, this time to keep from screaming. When I emerged, Bridget was berating Jessica. The proper response was to suggest our premium cake selection. They're 3 times the price of those tacky custom cakes. But she seemed really upset. "That's because she doesn't understand quality. Now I need you to replace all these pastry labels. The font isn't elegant enough." I'd seen enough. On my way out, I passed Maeve, Bridget's daughter, entering the bakery. "Mom, we need to talk about— Oh my God!" She stared at the new decor. "What have you done to this place?" "Darling, perfect timing. Help me choose between these 2 shades of gray for the new uniform colors." "Gray? In a bakery? Mom, this is insane. Malia built this place from nothing, and you're—" "Malia chose to prioritize motherhood," Bridget cut in smoothly. "I'm simply ensuring the business survives her domestic transition." I slipped out before my disguise cracked, but not before hearing Maeve's response. "You know what? I'm having dinner with Kent and Malia tonight. Maybe I'll ask her opinion on all these changes." In my car, I finally looked at the financial records properly. Between the drained accounts, alienated customers, and that pending review, Bridget was driving my life's work straight into the ground. But first, we had a family dinner to attend, and I had a lawyer to call. Johnny's office hadn't changed since my last visit 6 months ago. Same worn leather chairs, same wall of law books, same knowing smile as I settled into the seat across from him. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said, pulling out a familiar manila envelope. "Though I'll admit, I expected it would take your mother-in-law longer to show her true colors." "You knew this would happen?" "Malia, in 15 years of family business law, I've seen this story play out dozens of times. The minute you mentioned your mother-in-law's sudden interest in helping with the bakery, I knew we needed insurance." He spread the documents across his desk. My signature stood out at the bottom of each page, along with the notary's seal. "Tell me again," I said. "What exactly does this protect me from?" "Everything." Johnny tapped the first page. "This establishes that any operational changes require your explicit written consent. The second document creates a trust that legally owns the bakery's assets, with you as the sole trustee. And this," he held up the third paper, "is my personal favorite. It voids any contracts or agreements made during your maternity leave without your notarized approval." I leaned forward. "Even if she somehow got Kent to sign something?" "Even then, your husband has no legal authority over the bakery's operations. You made sure of that when you kept the business separate from your marital assets." He paused. "Speaking of Kent, how's he handling all this?" I sighed, caught in the middle, but his sister Maeve is on my side. She's coming to dinner tonight. "Ah, yes, the famous O'Brien family dinners. Just remember, don't show your hand too soon. Document everything. Has she made any significant changes to the business?" I pulled out my phone, showing him photos I'd taken during my undercover visit. "New signage, new menu, new pricing. She's drained the emergency fund for renovations, and she's invited a food critic from Elite Tastes." Johnny whistled. "That could be costly, but it also works in our favor. Clear evidence of unauthorized changes." He scribbled some notes. "What's your plan?" "I was hoping you'd help me with that part." He smiled. "Already did. 6 months ago, remember?" The memory flooded back. I'd been 7 months pregnant, sitting in this same chair, voicing my fears about leaving the bakery in someone else's hands. "You said something about preparing for war while planning for peace," I recalled. "Exactly, and you did the preparation. Now it's time for the execution." He handed me a new document. "Here's what we're going to do." An hour later, I left Johnny's office with a clear strategy and renewed confidence. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Kent and a text from Maeve. "Just saw the new menu prices. $12 for a basic muffin. Mom's lost it." I called Kent back while driving to pick up Lucy from daycare. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Mom's been trying to reach you about dinner." "Had some errands to run. Don't worry, I'll be there. 7 o'clock, right?" "Yeah, listen, about the bakery. Let's discuss it at dinner," I cut in smoothly. With everyone present, Lucy was all smiles when I picked her up, babbling about her day. As I buckled her into her car seat, my phone buzzed with a text from Layla. "Food critic just left. It wasn't good. Bridget's on the warpath." Perfect timing. At home, I dressed Lucy in her cutest outfit, the one Bridget had given her, complete with a little bow that matched her eyes. Then I pulled out the folder Johnny had prepared and tucked it into my laptop bag, just in case. Kent arrived home early, looking nervous. "Mom's bringing her special lasagna." "How thoughtful," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I made dessert." His eyes widened. "You baked?" "Just a simple cinnamon roll recipe. You know, the one that won Best of the County 3 years running. The one your mother discontinued." "Malia." "Yes, dear?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Just, please don't let this dinner turn into a battle." I kissed his cheek. "Of course not. It's just family dinner." As I finished getting ready, I caught my reflection in the mirror. 6 months ago, I'd sat in Johnny's office, a nervous pregnant woman worried about losing control of her business. Now I stood straighter, stronger, a mother ready to protect what was hers. The doorbell rang. I heard Kent greeting his mother and sister, followed by Bridget's commanding voice. "I brought wine. We have so much to celebrate." I took a deep breath, checked that Lucy was secure in her playpen, and touched the laptop bag holding Johnny's documents. Time to remind my dear mother-in-law that some celebrations are premature. "The lasagna looks lovely, Bridget," I said. passing the salad to Maeve. The dining room crackled with tension despite my forced smile. Thank you, dear. Bridget adjusted her designer blazer, still dressed for the bakery, I noticed. Though I must say, I'm surprised you had time to make dessert. Isn't Lucy keeping you busy enough? Maeve choked on her wine. Mom! What? I'm simply concerned about Malia spreading herself too thin. Speaking of which, Bridget dabbed her lips with a napkin, I have wonderful news about the bakery. Kent shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Maybe we should wait. I've secured a feature in Elite Tastes magazine, Bridget beamed. They're doing a spread on traditional bakeries transitioning to upscale establishments. We'll be their prime example. We? I took a slow sip of water. That's interesting. Of course, there are a few changes needed before the photo shoot. The old mixing bowls have to go, far too rustic. And that dreadful chalkboard menu? I'm ordering digital displays. Those bowls were antiques, Maeve protested. They had character. Character doesn't attract the right clientele, darling. Which reminds me, Bridget turned to me, I've been meaning to discuss the long-term arrangement. Clearly with Lucy needing your full attention. A sharp cry from the baby monitor interrupted her. I started to rise, but Kent squeezed my hand. I'll get her, he said, escaping the tension. Bridget waited until he left before continuing. As I was saying, I think it's time to make this transition permanent. I've already drafted the paperwork. Have you? I cut into my lasagna. That must have been time-consuming. Not at all. The lawyer made it quite simple. We just need your signature to formalize the arrangement. Maeve set down her fork. Mom, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. The bakery needs consistent leadership, not someone divided between business and baby. No offense, dear, she added, not sounding sorry at all. None taken. I reached for my laptop bag. Actually, I have some paperwork, too. Kent returned with Lucy, who immediately reached for me. As I settled her in my lap, Bridget frowned. Really, Malia? Children don't belong at the dinner table. In my day. In your day, Maeve interrupted, you had a full-time nanny, remember? That's different. I was running your father's company. And I'm running my bakery, I said quietly. The room fell silent. Bridget's smile tightened. Dear, we both know that's not practical anymore. The changes I've implemented. Like charging $12 for muffins, Maeve cut in. Or firing Mrs. Martinez's granddaughter, I added. Our longest-serving employee. Business decisions, Bridget waved dismissively. Sometimes progress requires difficult choices. Progress? I bounced Lucy gently. Is that what you call draining the emergency fund? Bridget's fork clattered against her plate. How did you know about that? I still have online access to all accounts, just like I still legally own the bakery. For now, Bridget's voice hardened, but once you sign, I won't be signing anything. I met her gaze steadily. In fact, you'll be the one signing papers soon, returning control of my business. Kent looked between us. Mom, what exactly have you done? Nothing that wasn't necessary, Bridget snapped. Someone had to step in. Your wife clearly can't handle. Can't handle what? I stood, still holding Lucy. Running a successful business? Being a mother? Or just not letting you control everything? How dare you? The food critic hated it, didn't they? Maeve asked suddenly. That's why you're pushing this now. Bridget's face flushed. There were some misunderstandings. They hated it because it's not Sweet Dreams anymore, I said. You've stripped away everything that made it special. I made it better. Better? Kent finally spoke up. Mom, you changed the name without asking. You fired people who've worked there for years. You're charging ridiculous prices for worse products. Kent, I'm your mother. And Malia's my wife, the mother of your granddaughter, the woman who built that bakery from nothing. He stood. What you did, it's wrong. Bridget pushed back her chair. I can see this dinner was a mistake. Clearly none of you understand business. Actually, I reached into my laptop bag. I understand it very well. That's why I had these drawn up months ago. I slid Johnny's documents across the table. Bridget stared at them, her face paling. What is this? Insurance, I said simply. Against exactly this kind of takeover attempt. The baby monitor crackled with static, cutting through the tense silence, like a timer going off in the bakery, signaling that something was done. And something was definitely done, just not in the way Bridget had planned. She's planning a grand reopening, Layla's voice crackled through my phone's speaker as I paced Johnny's office the next morning. Complete rebranding, fancy invitations, local press. She's acting like last night never happened. When? I asked, watching Johnny review the surveillance photos from the bakery. 2 weeks from Saturday. She's already ordered new signage, even more expensive than the last one. Johnny looked up from his desk. Using business funds? Of course, Layla confirmed. And get this, she's hiring a string quartet. I pinched the bridge of my nose. For a bakery? Oh, it gets better, Layla lowered her voice. She's calling it O'Brien's Artisanal Patisserie now, complete with fake French accents for the servers. Johnny scribbled something in his notepad. Perfect. More unauthorized expenditures. Keep tracking everything, Layla. After hanging up, I collapsed into a chair. She's going to bankrupt my business before we can stop her. Not if we move fast. Johnny spread out several documents. The good news is, she's making our case stronger every day. The bad news? She's got her own lawyer now. Who? Marcus Reynolds. Never heard of him. That's because he usually handles divorces, not business law. But he's aggressive. Specializes in hostile takeovers of family businesses during separations. Johnny leaned forward. Bridget's planning something big, Malia. This reopening isn't just about the bakery. My phone buzzed with a text from Maeve. Mom's telling everyone you had a breakdown at dinner, says you're suffering from postpartum depression and can't be trusted with business decisions. Unbelievable, I muttered, showing Johnny the message. He nodded grimly. Classic move. She's laying groundwork to challenge your competency. Can she do that? She can try, but we've got something better than accusations. We've got evidence. He pulled up security footage on his laptop. Your friend Layla's been busy. Watch this. The video showed Bridget arguing with suppliers, canceling long-standing contracts, marking up prices by ridiculous amounts. Another clip captured her shredding what looked like original receipts. This is good, Johnny said, but we need more. Specifically, we need proof she's acting against the business's interests while knowing she lacks authority. My phone buzzed again. Kent this time. Mom's asking me to sign something about temporary power of attorney. Says it's for your own good. There's our proof, Johnny smiled. Tell Kent to stall her. Say he needs time to think about it. I texted back quickly, then turned to Johnny. What's our next move? First, we document everything from the past 3 months. Then we... A knock interrupted us. Johnny's assistant poked her head in. Sorry, but you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to the local business news website. My heart stopped at the headline. Historic Downtown Bakery announces luxury rebranding. Exclusive preview event next week. She's moved up the timeline, Johnny muttered, reading over my shoulder. Smart. She's trying to force our hand. The article quotes me, I said incredulously. Owner Malia gracefully steps aside to focus on family, passing the torch to veteran businesswoman Bridget O'Brien. I never said this. Screenshot everything, Johnny instructed. This is getting better by the minute. Better? She's destroying my reputation. She's hanging herself. Every false quote, every unauthorized change, every penny spent, it's all ammunition. He grabbed his phone. Call Layla. Tell her to document every customer complaint, every employee concern. Then call Maeve. We need a family insider's perspective. I made the calls while Johnny drafted documents. Layla reported that several longtime customers had already canceled standing orders after seeing the article. Maeve revealed that Bridget had been meeting with real estate agents, possibly planning to relocate the bakery to a more upscale location. One more thing, Maeve added hesitantly. Mom's planning to serve notice at the reopening event. Some kind of public announcement about taking full control. She's invited practically everyone in town. I looked at Johnny. Can we stop her? Better. His eyes gleamed. We can let her do it. In fact, We can help her make it the biggest event possible. Invite everyone who's ever cared about Sweet Dreams Bakery. I don't understand. Think about it. She wants an audience? Let's give her one. But instead of watching you lose your bakery, he slid a new document across the desk. They'll watch her lose everything she thought she'd gained. I read the title, Cease and Desist with Immediate Injunctive Relief. The bigger she makes this event, Johnny explained, the more witnesses we'll have to her downfall. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning, it's letting your opponent defeat themselves in front of everyone they were trying to impress. I picked up my phone again, smiling for the first time in days. Maeve, tell your mother I'd love to help with the guest list for her big event. She fired me! Layla burst into my kitchen, her apron still dusted with flour. Said I wasn't refined enough for the new image. I handed her a cup of coffee. Perfect timing. Did you get everything? Every last document. She pulled a USB drive from her pocket. Financial records, emails, security footage, even photos of her shredding papers. But that's not the best part. What do you mean? Margaret called me right after I left. I nearly dropped my mug. Margaret? Bridget's best friend, Margaret? The same. Turns out she's not happy about what Bridget's doing. Says it goes against everything your bakery stands for. Layla leaned forward. She wants to help. Margaret had been Bridget's closest confidant for 20 years. This was huge. Help how? She has texts. Dozens of them. Bridget bragging about taking over, planning how to push you out. Some from months before your maternity leave. I grabbed my phone to call Johnny, but it rang first. Kent. Have you seen the new invitation? He asked without preamble. What invitation? Mom just sent it out. You should check your email. I pulled up my laptop, Layla reading over my shoulder. The invitation was garishly elegant, all gold foil and cursive script. O'Brien's Artisanal Patisserie cordially invites you to a grand transformation celebration. Witness the evolution of tradition as we embrace a new era of sophistication. Keep reading, Kent said grimly. At the bottom, join us as we bid farewell to Sweet Dreams Bakery and welcome an elevated dining experience. Special announcement regarding new ownership to follow presentation. She's really doing it, I whispered. She's actually planning to announce a takeover at her own party. There's more, Layla pointed at the screen. Look who's on the guest list. The mayor, the Chamber of Commerce, local business owners, food critics, everyone who'd supported Sweet Dreams over the years. She's invited everyone who matters in town, Kent said. Mom wants witnesses for her moment of triumph. Oh, she'll have witnesses all right. I forwarded the invitation to Johnny, just not for the triumph she's expecting. My phone buzzed again, Maeve this time. Mom's in rare form. She's hired security for the event, says she's worried you might make a scene. Security? Layla scoffed. At a bakery? Another buzz. Margaret. We need to talk. Meet me at the park in an hour. Bring your lawyer. Johnny arrived at the park before I did, already deep in conversation with Margaret on a bench. She looked nervous, clutching a thick folder. Malia, she stood as I approached. I should have come forward sooner. Why now? Because this isn't the Bridget I know anymore. Margaret hesitated. She's obsessed. This isn't just about the bakery. It's about proving she's still relevant, still in control. She handed me the folder. These are copies of everything. Text messages, emails, notes from planning meetings. She started plotting this the day you announced your pregnancy. Johnny flipped through the documents, his eyebrows rising. This is better than we hoped. Direct evidence of premeditation. There's something else, Margaret added. The food critic? From Elite Tastes? He's an old friend of Bridget's. She paid him to write a negative review of Sweet Dreams' original concept. My hands clenched. She what? She wanted justification for the changes, but it backfired. He wrote honestly about how she'd ruined a beloved local institution. Margaret pulled out her phone. I recorded her reaction when she read it. She wasn't pleased. The recording played. Bridget's voice, shrill with rage, ranting about showing everyone who was really in charge. Johnny was already typing on his laptop. This changes everything. We don't just have evidence of unauthorized changes, we have proof of deliberate sabotage. My phone lit up with a text from Layla. You need to see this. Bridget's installing new signs right now. Margaret peeked at the message. The rebranding isn't scheduled until next week. She's rushing everything. Because she knows we're on to her, Johnny said. She's trying to create a fait accompli before we can stop her. I stood up. Then let's not keep her waiting. Margaret, are you sure about helping us? She's your best friend. Was, Margaret corrected. The Bridget I knew would never destroy someone else's dream out of spite. She straightened her shoulders. Count me in. Johnny gathered the documents. I'll file the injunction today. But remember, we want her to go through with this party. Oh, she will, Margaret said grimly. Bridget never could resist a grand gesture. I looked at the invitation again, at all those important names who would witness whatever happened next. Perfect, I said, because I'm planning quite a gesture myself. The string quartet played softly as elegantly dressed guests filed into my transformed bakery. Crystal champagne flutes clinked, and servers in bow ties circulated with tiny, overpriced pastries. From my position near the back, I watched Bridget work the room in a designer suit that probably cost more than a month's worth of ingredients. Ready? Johnny whispered beside me. I adjusted Lucy's bow and nodded. Everyone in position? Layla's by the kitchen, Margaret's near the podium, and Maeve's keeping your husband calm. He checked his watch. The mayor just arrived. Perfect timing. Bridget tapped her glass, calling for attention. Welcome, distinguished guests, to the dawn of a new era in culinary excellence. The crowd turned toward her. I spotted Mrs. Martinez in the back, clutching her granddaughter's hand. Several former employees stood nearby, watching with barely concealed anger. Sweet Dreams Bakery served this community well, Bridget continued. But times change. Today we embrace sophistication, elegance, and fraud? I stepped forward, Lucy in my arms. The crowd parted like water. Bridget's smile froze. Malia, dear, how unexpected. I thought you'd be home with the baby. My baby and my bakery can coexist, Bridget, unlike your lies. I don't know what you're talking about, she turned to the crowd. You'll have to excuse my daughter-in-law. New motherhood can be so overwhelming. Show them, Johnny. The projector screen behind Bridget flickered to life, displaying security footage of her shredding documents. Next came screenshots of her texts, plotting the takeover, followed by bank statements showing the drained accounts. That's private business material, Bridget snapped. Exactly, I agreed. My private business. The one you tried to steal. The mayor stepped forward. Mrs. O'Brien, is this true? Of course not. I was merely protecting the business while Malia recovered. Recovered? Margaret's voice rang out. Or was pushed out. Play the recording. Bridget's own voice filled the room, ranting about her plans to force me out, to prove she was still relevant. The color drained from her face. Margaret, how could you? How could I what? Tell the truth? That's what friends do, Bridget. They stop you from destroying yourself. I bounced Lucy gently as she began to fuss. You know what's interesting? While you were busy trying to prove I couldn't handle motherhood and business, you proved something else entirely. And what's that? Bridget's voice was ice. That Sweet Dreams was never about fancy decorations or overpriced pastries. It was about community. I gestured to the crowd. Everyone here has a story about this bakery. Mrs. Martinez's grandson's first birthday cake, the mayor's daughter's wedding cookies, the Christmas bread pudding that won Best in Show 3 years running. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. But you, I continued, you tried to erase all that, because you couldn't stand that I built something successful without your help. I made it better, Bridget exploded. I made it sophisticated. You made it fail, Johnny interrupted, holding up papers. The Real Elite Tastes review just came out. Would you like me to read it? Don't you dare! O'Brien's artisanal patisserie represents everything wrong with modern gentrification, he read loudly. A beloved local institution stripped of its charm and inflated with pretension. The only thing more disappointing than the $12 muffins is the betrayal of Sweet Dreams' original vision. The crowd buzzed with conversation. Bridget grabbed for the papers, but Johnny held them out of reach. That's not all, he continued. I'm also holding a court order restoring full control to the legitimate owner, plus damages for unauthorized changes and financial misconduct. You can't prove. We already have, I cut in. Every document, every text, every illegal decision. It's all here. I shifted Lucy to my hip. The only question is whether you'll sign the transfer papers voluntarily, or if we need to handle this in court. Bridget looked around wildly, finding no allies. Even Kent stood with Maeve, both watching their mother with disappointment. You ungrateful little, she started. Sign the papers, Mom, Kent said quietly. It's over. Johnny held out a pen. The string quartet had stopped playing. The entire room held its breath. With trembling fingers, Bridget snatched the pen. You'll regret this, she hissed, scrawling her signature. No, I said, watching her signature complete the restoration of my business. I won't. I turned to the crowd. Now, who wants to try the real Sweet Dreams cinnamon rolls? The recipe that won Best of the County? Layla? Layla emerged from the kitchen with trays of my signature pastries, warm, fragrant, and decidedly unsophisticated. As the crowd surged forward, abandoning Bridget's fancy appetizers, I caught Kent's eye. He smiled, mouthing, I love you. Lucy grabbed for a cinnamon roll, smearing icing on her fancy dress. Perfect. Some things were meant to be messy, authentic, and absolutely sweet. The morning sun streamed through Sweet Dreams' windows as I kneaded dough at my favorite workstation. The familiar rhythm felt like coming home. Lucy watched from her playpen in the corner, babbling happily at Layla, who was decorating cookies nearby. The bell chimed. We're not open yet, I called out. Not even for family? I looked up to find Maeve holding a newspaper. Depends. Are you bringing good news or bad news? See for yourself. She spread the paper on a flour-free spot. The headline read, Local Bakery Triumph, Sweet Dreams returns to its roots. They interviewed half the town, Maeve grinned. Mrs. Martinez gave quite the quote about community values versus corporate greed. How's your mom taking it? Maeve's smile faded slightly. She's adjusting. Moving to Florida, actually. Says she needs a fresh start. And Kent? Relieved, honestly. He's been different since the showdown. More confident standing up to her. She picked up a cookie. These are new. Baby shower order, speaking of which. I nodded toward the door. Margaret entered, carrying a stack of papers. The last of Bridget's mess. All supplier contracts restored, all accounts straightened out. Thank you, I said, for everything. Don't thank me yet. She pulled out one more document. Bridget's trying to open a patisserie in Miami. She's already calling investors. I shrugged, turning back to my dough. Let her. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. The kitchen door swung open as Kent arrived with coffee for everyone. Morning, ladies. Ready for the health inspector? Already done, Layla reported. Perfect score, just like before. Lucy squealed, reaching for Kent. As he scooped her up, flour dusted his suit, but he didn't seem to mind. You're going to be late for work, I reminded him. Worth it. Besides, I brought something. He pulled a small package from his briefcase. Found this while packing Mom's things. Inside was a faded recipe card. My hands trembled as I recognized the handwriting. Your grandmother's original cinnamon roll recipe, Kent said softly. Mom had it all along. The one she claimed was lost? Anger flared briefly, but then I laughed. You know what? Let's use it today. Really? Maeve asked. Why not? It's part of the bakery's history, the real history. I pinned the recipe card to my inspiration board, right next to Lucy's first picture. The morning crew began arriving. All the familiar faces Bridget had fired, now rehired. The kitchen filled with chatter and laughter as ovens preheated and ingredients were measured. Miss Malia? Jessica poked her head in. There's someone asking about a job. Says she worked at that fancy patisserie across town. Send her in. The young woman who entered looked nervous but determined. I know you probably don't want anyone associated with upscale bakeries, but do you know how to make bread from scratch? Yes, but can you frost a cake without using fondant? She smiled slightly. I prefer buttercream, actually. You're hired. Layla will show you around. As the kitchen settled into its morning routine, I watched Lucy playing with measuring spoons. already at home in the bakery that would someday be hers, if she wanted it. Thinking deep thoughts? Kent asked, stealing a warm cinnamon roll. Just realizing something. Your mother was right about one thing. Oh? Change is inevitable, but it doesn't have to mean losing what matters. The front bell chimed again. This time it was Johnny, carrying his usual briefcase. Don't tell me there's more paperwork, I groaned. Actually, I'm here as a customer. My daughter's wedding? She wants those raspberry tarts you used to make. Used to? Check the new menu board. He looked up at the chalkboard where I'd written today's specials. Among the tried and true favorites was a section labeled Sweet Dreams Classics, back by popular demand. Perfect, Johnny smiled. Some things shouldn't change. Lucy knocked over a bag of flour, sending white clouds everywhere. As Kent and I rushed to clean up, laughing at our powder-covered daughter, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the window. A family in our flour-dusted, wonderfully imperfect glory, surrounded by the sweet smell of success baking in the ovens. The morning sun lit up the original Sweet Dreams Bakery sign, restored to its rightful place. Below it, I'd added a small tagline, where tradition meets tomorrow. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about staying true to who you are and letting karma handle the rest.